Good morning and welcome to B Stocks. I hope you're keeping well. A bit warm, it's a bit chilly. Today we're going to have a discussion about government regulations on manufacturing and matters environmental conversation. And in the house we have Ebenezer Amadi, the Program Manager, Sustainable Inclusive Business at KEPSA. He's right here in the house. And that's the conversation we shall have. On the posters as well, I know you noticed we had Joyce Gashugi, who unfortunately couldn't make it because of an emergency that popped up, but we are more than ready. Ebenezer, welcome, man.
Thank you.
It's good
to
have
having me on the show.
I know we normally serve a lot of drinks, but you came with yours, so let me just pass it to you.
Also,
welcome.
thank you.
And I think I like the bottle. We can talk about it. Is it labeled your name?
Yeah, it has my name in it, yes.
Okay. Yeah. What does it take? Maybe, hopefully, you can tell me your plug.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, if you can kindly tell a friend that we are live on all I wanted to say on all Ebenezer pages, sorry. On all B-Stocks pages. That's Facebook, YouTube, Twitter as well, and even for the ones who have tuned in on Zoom. So thanks a lot for joining us. We are more than ready to go. So yeah, I can see most of you popping in. Thank you and welcome. Now, I wanted to start this conversation with just getting to understand who Ebenezer is. I have met him in different forums where we have had discussions a lot on sustainability things, environmental things and the likes. But Ebenezer, as usual, I like starting by asking the question, when people ask who Ebenezer is, who do you say you are?
Actually, normally, Ebenezer is normally like an icebreaker because it's 8-letter word, so quite long and sometimes, and that's always a conversation starter for people. But
you're right.
I am, as I said, a program manager at the Kenya Private Sector Alliance.
Yeah.
But beyond that, a DG school dropout, finance expert, governance expert, once a dancer when I was in campus.
Yeah.
And just and I have an understanding of business, the way business run, and a passion for sustainability.
Okay. DJ dropout.
Yeah.
Okay.
I dropped out of GG school, but it wasn't me. It wasn't me. It was the instructor.
Oh, they
were skipping class.
Oh, you were skipping class.
They were skipping class.
Oh. Okay. That's a good one.
And that's how I dropped out of GG school. I need to find a better one.
There's still room. There's an online course, I guess. I
like the practical aspect of. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
See me behind the tent. I'll tell you more.
Okay,
Anyway.
nice one.
Let's talk about KEPSA. KEPSA is so large. I didn't know there was it feels like there's a lot of, everybody thinks KEPSA thinks just about just businesses, but there are all these programs that run there.
Yeah.
And I know this could form a whole conversation if we just to talk about KEPSA, but in a nutshell, could you elaborate a bit more on your program and when it started?
Yeah.
And what you're aiming at? Yeah.
Great. So let me start with the organization KEPSA, Kenya Private Sector Alliance.
Yeah.
Kenya Private Sector Alliance is the apex body of the private sector. So we represent the private sector. So we are the voice of the private sector.
Yeah.
And we have more or less like, say, two arms. So we have public-private dialogue, and we also have the social-economic arm. So within the public-private dialogue conversation, we try to support businesses to create an enabling environment. So we have conversations with government through what I just described as a public-private dialogue. We call it PPD.
Yeah.
If you hear about anything of the sort, that's what it stands for. But we have 18 sector boards, 18. So they mirror the ministries that we have, and we have conversations with every ministry on policy matters, laws, regulations, policies, as well as just looking at how to create a better economy and transition Kenya through an export growth economy.
Okay.
Under the social economic arm, we have programs that are running. For example, Ajira. I know you've heard about that to the Ministry of ICT.
Yes.
We have programs on MSME. We also have the Sustainable Inclusive Business.
Okay.
So it's an interesting story because Sustainable Inclusive Business began as a project funded by the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands back in the day 2015.
Okay.
Then what we were supposed to do is to transition the project into a program. So we actually called it as a knowledge center under the Kenya Private Sector Alliance.
Oh.
So the project ended in August 31st, 2022. Still remember the date.
Yes.
When I transitioned into a program,
Okay.
and the program has four thematic areas. So we have circular economy, we have climate change, people power. It's basically talking about inclusion, and the last one is redefining business values.
Okay.
So we're talking about how the private sector contributes to achieving the sustainable development goals.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting, but before we get into the exact things that you're doing there, and because I don't know how business are thriving this time around, I think there's a lot of complaints here and there, and you stand at a place where you see how sustainable are these businesses, or are they dying, because there's a lot of comments about the length of businesses that start in this country, especially SMEs. And, and
actually, actually, a study shows that most of the businesses close shop between 5 to 10 years. So they just go under. And there are different reasons why companies go under. It could be because of governance issues. You might see billion businesses going under because of governance issues.
Yeah.
And also just the difference in terms of markets. The markets change sometimes. For example, if you had a shop, right, that's leveraging on COVID, and you had masks stored somewhere. Now, people are not buying. But back in 2020, people had to diversify. So the person who was selling peanuts or groundnuts had to diversify and also sell masks. Yes. So the sales also increased because of the mask.
That's true.
So market diversity is also, or dynamics is also another issue.
Okay.
Talk about also the political state, also as well as just general the economy, and of course COVID. Some businesses also went down during COVID, and people closed shop. Yeah. I remember one of my friends had to close their office, literally, and just start all over again when COVID was, I mean, we kind of coming back from it.
Affected. Yeah. Okay. You know, I'm just thinking about your title, Sustainable Inclusive Business, and I wanted to ask you, when you sit where you sit right now, and you know, you're at a place where you're able to have the eagle's eye view of how the business environment is in the country, and I'm sure on the sustainable angle, you advise even, you know, the different sectors, because I believe all sectors must, in a way, have some sustainable way of doing it. Yes. Maybe these are assumptions, but you'll clarify for me. But the question is, what's the state of doing business right now, in your view?
State of doing business. So someone asked me the same question, but in a different way. And my mind works in 3D. So I told him, it's almost like if you compare it to driving,
yes,
you're kind of on a road that has some potholes, so you're trying to maneuver through. So that's how it feels right now in terms of the state of business in the country, or state of the economy. Because there are some issues, starting with the recent past demonstrations. I mean, businesses were closing shop. Yeah. We actually saw RETRAC telling us, because RETRAC is also one of our members, that the retail store lost about 1.2 billion shilling. NSE, we are at NSE right now, just reported that during that time they also lost about 20 billion Kenyan shillings.
You're right.
We're seeing a decrease in tourists coming in. The tourism industry employs about 3.1 million people.
It's a lot of people.
So you can guess, if people are not coming in, the guys will try and just reduce the employees, just trying to reduce their cost to the bare minimums. So it's quite a difficult place, and of course, generally the economies in different parts of the world are not doing really well because of, let's say, the war that's going on in Russia, which is leading to increase in fuel, and of course fuel has a ripple effect to the economy because of transportation. Yeah. Because if you have to bring your goods from the farm, you have to use either road or railway, or you have to bring it to, as cargo, and the prices definitely will go up.
Okay, so are you having discussions with, of course, definitely I assume that if you mirror every ministry in the government, that means you're having discussions with them.
Most definitely.
Are you pushing an agenda to help us out? Because you see, Kenyans are out there. I think we can't ignore the fact that we're in a mandamano season, if I may call it that.
What do we do? Let me clarify.
Yes.
Our perspective is a business perspective.
Yes.
So even the numbers that I'm telling you is because whatever happens as a business person, if the door, if you close your doors, you're counting losses because you say if, for example, every day you had a sale of 10,000 shillings, then it's not, there's nothing coming in.
Yeah.
So it means you've lost 10,000 for that particular day. If you had a kiosk and your sale for that particular day was 1,000 shillings, it means your loss is 1,000. So we're looking at it from the business perspective.
Yeah.
Of course, these dynamics affect business, and of course, then we also do talk to both sides. I will give you an example. We have a program that we normally run that normally speaks to the political divide before, during, and after election.
And after elections.
Yeah.
It's good. And I understand, because whatever season we are in, you need to be talking to the current government. I want us to get back a bit to our subject of the day, you know, but when I look at you, I see you as a body. It's very hard to just push you aside to just sustainability. And yet, when we hear KEPSA, we know you guys should be talking about us a bit here and there.
we are most definitely talking about, because creating an enable environment includes stability in the economy, right?
You're
so
right.
when you have a stable political space, then that means that businesses will also have an opportunity to thrive. That's an enabling environment that you're talking about.
Absolutely. So let's just now endear the people. When you're talking about sustainable, inclusive business, what's your expectations for businesses who are probably your members, and I'm sure there are people who will be asking as well, will be explaining to you how they can join KEPSA. What is the expectation for you? What are you aiming at in your program? It's no longer a program.
Now it's a program, yes.
It's a program.
Now
it's in your program. What are you pushing?
So the agenda back in the day was to do two things.
Yes.
One, very simple, create awareness on sustainable business practices, and two, support the private sector to adopt the best practices.
Okay.
Then now we transitioned into the fourth thematic areas. For example, when you're talking about circularity, we're talking about redesigning our waste.
Yes.
When you're talking about climate change, you're looking at you plugging into the adaptation and mitigation measures.
Okay.
When you're talking about people power, you're talking about inclusivity. When we talk about redefining business values, basically you're talking about you plugging into SDGs. So for a company, we might narrow it down into three things, very simple.
Yeah.
The reporting that they call ESG.
Yes.
Environmental, social and governance.
Yes.
So I want you to improve on your governance and also have diversity. We have been seeing, I'll keep saying this because we're sitting at NSC, right?
Yes. It's okay.
I mean, was encouraging diversity within the board. I remember back in the day when I used to support, while I was working for the water sector at SNV, Netherlands Development Organization, we were supporting NIVA was. So it almost sounded like NIVAS.
I know.
NIVA was. Sorry. That's Naivasha Water and Sanitation Company, but now it's called Naivawasco.
Okay.
And also looking at the diversity of the board at that time, and we were just encouraging them to look at the diversity, especially in the level of skills and also gender balance.
Okay.
So looking at improving that, because then the systems in the company are able to help you thrive and help you to have some backstopping mechanisms to look out for the level of risk, and also looking ahead, because strategy development lies with the board, and the management then implements. But you're also supposed not to have interference of the management, interference of the board on the management of the company.
Okay.
Because it's supposed to be like separation. So the board does their job, and they allow the CEO or the MD to run the company, and then report back to them. And the management reports to the CEO, and now the departments report to the management. So it goes like that.
Goes all the way
it's a
down.
ripple effect.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's an interesting forum we could have about ESGs and how to implement them in people's organizations and even their SMEs. Let's get back to now matters of, and at least you've alluded to them. But I want to bring the story of Kenya because the president is very vocal out there speaking about climate change. We saw him in France. He's been quite vocal about it, and which is a great thing. I mean, we've even seen tree planting going around. They have a target, and then just the other day he talked something about allowing some logging to happen. And I thought, oh my! In fact, there's a petition going round. It has hit me. It has hit my WhatsApp because I think guys are sharing.
Yeah.
But we're saying no, don't touch the forest. And I'm wondering, okay, what is this? So my question to you is what's the situation right now with regards to environmental conservation and forest cover? And does this lift on logging affect this?
It's quite an interesting one, that but there are a lot of initiatives that are trying to increase the forest cover. So about 3 years ago, we were at 9%. Now we're getting to about 12%. So there's a little bit of
forest cover.
Tree cover.
Okay,
There's a difference between a tree cover and a forest cover.
Forest cover. Okay.
Yeah, those are two different things. So the forest cover could be a bit lower than the 12%. I need to check I don't want to give you the wrong numbers.
It's okay. Sorry.
But if you look at it, it's a two-edged sword. From the layman's perspective, if you just to go into the forest and begin to cut trees, that's a very dangerous situation because sometimes we do not know our limits. I come from a county called Vihiga County, and they used to have a forest called Vihiga Forest.
Where is it?
Oh, nowadays we have stones in the hill. The forest disappeared.
It disappeared.
But tourists used to come, and then there was, I think the mast, they built it in a different way, so it's built with stone. People used to come, climb up, and you could see Kisumu from afar. So it was a beautiful sight that tourists used to come. So there were two things. One, the forest cover was good.
Was good.
Number two, tourist attraction. Look at what happened to the crying stone. It's no longer crying.
It's no longer crying.
Yeah, but it's because they planted the wrong trees around it.
Oh.
So again, you need to understand the right tree to plant in the right environment. Now, back to a question, because I know you're waiting for it.
Yes.
I mean, if we just go into cutting down trees, that's a tricky position for us. But if you're looking at it from a scientific view, where it is regulated, and it could be healthy for the forest to breathe. Of course, in school we learned that through photosynthesis, then the plants are able to grow and produce and make their own food, right? So without sunlight, it means some of the trees will not be growing properly. So it's a trimming that will be good, and probably getting out some few trees out of the way that you can use. So it's called forest management. So it's supposed to be done in a managed sustainably.
Okay.
Yeah. But if we just let our people to go and just cut trees, then that's a problem that needs to be checked. Yeah. Okay. That's my opinion. No, but of course, the first thing that people feel is, are we going back to where we were before? It's because people just are not managing the forest in a sustainable way, so they just go and clear. Because they're like, oh, now we have the opportunity to do it. Now they just go in and clear the forest.
You know, I think we know how things go. No wonder we have to be. We still have police on the roads. It's not that people can't stop when the light is red. But the moment you open a window, we have seen it. In fact, that's what I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, if I was to...
Is the government serious? But
if I was to advise the president, and I look into the camera and say, Mr. President, I will say you need to... pull it back a little bit and just let the initiatives run, and then let people also learn, because it's a learning process. There's something called behavior change communication. We've been used to just going and cutting down trees not in a sustainable way. So we need to learn, how do we sustainably manage our forests? Then once that sinks in, then slowly then KFS can begin to look at opportunities to make use of the forests. And also protecting those areas so that people don't encroach and start grabbing land. That's also another thing.
It's another thing,
grabbing land. But again, I also looked at a case that was in 2017, between KFS and the Ogiek. So the judiciary also has the challenge when they're looking at the rights in the constitution. So the right to land and the right to water. So which one is greater? Because the Ogiek community were given a go ahead and say, okay, that is your land, but where was the land? Mile Complex. That's a water catchment area.
Oh my goodness.
So sometimes it's a tricky balance. So when you're looking at right to land, right to water.
I don't know how that's going to span out, but anyway, I think we've had a lot of disharmony sometimes in those areas because there are people who feel like you're touching our catchment, and others feel we need the land as well, we belong. As you're saying, it's a complex one. Let me use that word, complex one.
It's complex.
Let's talk about acts that I've seen, sustainable acts in Parliament. But how many do we have? Because there's one on Sustainable Waste Management Act. But I know you sit at a place where you see all these laws being passed, so you let me know on that. But let's talk about the Sustainable Waste Management Act.
Quite a number. It's actually called the National Sustainable Waste Management Act of 2022.
Oh.
Yeah, then we also have the Extended Producer Responsibility Regulation, so that's the regulation, but it's still a draft.
Okay.
But it's still in conversations between the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry and the Attorney General's office. But we're hopeful that it will be out soon.
Okay. So now, how will this affect Mwananchi, especially the Sustainable Waste Management Act?
It brings in a good principle because then it integrates the element of circularity in managing our waste. So it then encourages businesses within the economy to integrate circularity. And circularity is a good principle because we're looking at redesigning out waste. We can also look at the principle of waste to value. We can look at the nexus between waste and energy, so we call waste to energy, because you can actually then use the organic waste to manufacture briquettes, pellets. You can actually use again the organic waste to produce biogas. And then we're actually doing a study to try and find out how we'll be able to upscale that and just convert the production of gas and modify a generator so that you're able to generate electricity without using diesel. So we'll be telling you about the findings when the
can't wait for
research is out.
In fact, I visited, I think it was in Karen. I think the gentleman is called Kahombo. And I mean, in his house, he has managed to convert, and this is biogas from just these remnants of food materials. And so he has gas and he has lighting in his house based on that. And I thought, okay, if this was cheaper to establish, I'm sure everybody has some waste somewhere in their homes that they could probably convert it to that. And if it goes large scale, the better. But anyway, that's a conversation about your findings.
And the farms would work, but now in the city, imagine everyone having their own waste and trying to generate their own energy. So it will be quite tricky.
Yes.
But in the farms, yes, and I look at it in a different way in the manufacturing sector. It should actually be something that they can adapt in the farms. They can actually also do that. And more so in different sectors, the blue economy sector, the water sector. There was a project that actually tried to, they actually did succeed. They were making pellets and briquettes from sludge, so from the wastewater treatment plant. It's in Nakuru. In Nakuru.
Human waste?
Yes. Yeah. But they did some studies, did run some studies and got a nice mix where the briquettes were burning longer than the normal charcoal. So it basically means that you have you use less of those briquettes.
Okay.
So it becomes more affordable than the charcoal.
And you experienced it?
Yes.
And they don't smell, is it?
No, it's good. You can touch it.
Okay.
They did run all the tests.
Just check it. Yeah.
The consumers are quite skeptical at some point. So
I know
what they did in the initial phase. So they prepared a barbecue, nice barbecue, and people came and but now you tell them what the briquette is made out of, and they're like, I don't think I'll eat. And then the guys who were preparing that ate, so they did wait for the second day. It's like, the guys are okay, they're okay, so let me try small piece today. And they were told, okay, you can also touch. And then they also, actually, Kenyans are quite, they're well educated. Yeah. So they also went to read the findings of the study and like, okay, this is approved by KEB. So and good to understand the process. It's actually heated up to about 300 degrees Celsius. So generally understand there are no pathogens that can survive that heat. Okay. So if you understand that process, then like, okay, now I can eat this. Okay. And the demand actually exceeded, and they did not have the capacity to meet the demand. That's what happened.
What do you mean?
Because people went and tried. So they were putting just a few of those briquettes and pellets with normal charcoal. And then they observe, like, this thing is staying quite longer than the charcoal. Then they add, and they realize, we can cook with this thing. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm okay with it. Just the personal thing is that let it be on top of a sufuria or something, not direct to a barbecue, man, but we'll talk about that. I'm curious to ask, from where you see it, sustainability, circularity, all these things we're talking about. And the fact that we're saying we can recycle, and in fact, the phrase we normally use is that waste is wealth. There's so many people, we keep complaining, unemployment, all those things. From your perspective, if we embrace this full force, would we eradicate unemployment?
The potential is great, and I wouldn't say eradicate employment, because the numbers are actually going really up quite high. The population, I think, is between 7.8 to 8 billion people in the world. And Africa has a population of between 1.2 to 1.4 billion people. So quite a huge number there. And the population of the youth in the world is 1.4 billion. So if you convert that, you actually, if you just spread out people according to their age, all of Africa will be the youth in the world. So the potential there is and the numbers were 4.5 billion US dollars in terms of the contribution to the economy. That's what the potential is in terms of circularity and harnessing growth from it.
So, zero waste, is that something that is achievable? Because now if you're...
I'll be realistic with you. Zero waste is not achievable. It's not achievable. But the best practice is that 5% of what remains could be manageable, because that is what can go to the landfill. The best thing is to start with is to separate waste at source. So that gives you the opportunity to recover the materials. For example, you can recover plastic, metal, paper, glass, and then organic, right? So if you have it separate like that, then the organic will have a good value when you're trying to, let's say, generate biogas from it, or you're trying to produce organic manure or compost. Then you can reuse some of those items, for example, glass. We still do have the deposit system. The plastics, we actually see in our homes. If we just use an example of this,
yes.
I'm not so sure if that container in yellow gold still has fat, or you've put some salt in it. So if you go to the homes,
yes.
That's what happens. You go
forgive us this, don't worry.
Nice. So if you go into the fridge, you grab a container, you're like, this is ice cream, and then you open
salt.
Some nice mokimo that was left over, so you close it and put it back.
So it's so good.
The reuse, so if you use the principles of reuse, repurpose, refurbish, recycle, will be nice to have. Then try to recover those material so that you're able to reduce what goes into the landfill. Do you know that a bigger percentage of our waste goes into the landfill, and that's a problem. And that's also a contributor to emissions of greenhouse gases. So it's actually linked to climate change.
Okay.
So if we manage our waste, they're actually good potential ripple effect on climate change. If we look at waterborne diseases, increasing the level of hygiene, just good environment and fresh air, respiratory diseases as well. So it actually goes down, and you actually remain as a person with some disposable income. Okay. Because sometimes when we have the challenges in health, then it takes away a lot of money from our pockets if you don't have insurance.
Yeah, that's true.
And the reason why we take insurance is because
is limited sometimes, yes.
Yeah, it's because you're trying to cover that risk. It's a risk
that's true.
That you have.
Yeah, there's another category of people we need to address, especially with these Sustainable Waste Management Act and all, and these are the manufacturers. Are you concerned? Are they concerned from your circles? Are they speaking, and how will they be affected?
You know, actually, there was a conversation between the private sector, government, we call it public-private dialogue. Yeah. Way back when Professor Wahungu, yes. When she was the cabinet secretary, and then the government did ban the flat carrier bags. Yeah. So they were looking at, we have a great challenge because you will drive down the highways and just see paper bags hanging all over the trees. Looks like a Christmas tree everywhere. That was a challenge. Those papers were choking the rivers, and plus they say, so why don't we eliminate this? And people were like, can we really do without that? Rwanda is doing it. But the transition also needs to be relooked at, because the question we need to ask ourselves is that the options that we provided, are they also sustainable? Yes, we're able to reuse them, which is a good thing. And then we looked at plastic bottles, PET. So the government just wanted, so the principle always is, if there's a problem, ban. But there was a conversation between the private sector, said, okay, so how about if we look at adopting circularity in managing the waste and the packaging? And say, okay, how will that work? That means that we will try and increase the recovery of the product itself, so the collection, increase recycling of these products, so that all that does not just go into the landfill. I say, okay, so why don't we try that? That's why the element of circularity now became a discussion and was included in the National Sustainable Waste Management Act. Now there's a draft EPR regulation. So the EPR is the Extended Producer Responsibility. Okay. Basically works with the polluter pays principle, and says that if I am a producer and I have packaged my product and I'm taking it to the market, and I'm still responsible for this packaging post-consumption. Okay. Meaning after you buy one of these products, you use it and throw away the packaging. The manufacturer is still responsible for that packaging. So they must ensure that when the law and the regulation comes to effect, that they will need to work with the producer responsibility organizations, who will and then work with the collectors. We're calling them waste service providers, as well as the recyclers, to be able to collect it, recycle it, and look at different opportunities to recover the material.
Okay.
So it's a conversation that's happening, and the private sector is actually really engaged, and they're looking at how the modalities will look like. There were a number of PROs that did set up under voluntary kind of scheme, so the private sector were coming in and registering without anyone pushing them. That's why we're calling it voluntary.
Okay.
But when the regulation is gazetted, now it becomes mandatory.
Okay. Let's talk about this EPR. You're talking about this extended producer responsibility. I think I was speaking to Mwendwa, and they said, for example, in Coca-Cola, they had to move their bottles to, like transparent colors, so that at least the recycling process is easier. Because I understand when they're colored, it's another story.
Yeah.
What are the few other things that guys that you know out there are expected to do while embracing this EPR?
Great. So it's looking at the best practices.
Okay.
Now, as Sustainable Inclusive Business, we're also the Secretariat of the Kenya Plastics Pact. The Kenya Plastics Pact is the second to be established in Africa after the South African Plastics Pact. And it follows the principles of Ellen MacArthur Foundation to redesign out waste. And within the Kenya Plastics Pact, our aim is to try and solve the plastic pollution that chokes the rivers, chokes the environment, and if not taken care, it's a contributor to the quantities that goes into the landfill. So number one, we're talking about eliminating problematic plastic. And when we talk about problematic plastic, we mean the single-use plastic, so what you use once and throw, right? Okay. Because if you use once and throw, it basically means that the production of waste is quite high. Yeah. Then the second part, we're looking at designing the packaging so that it is recyclable and reusable, so that you can use it more than once. The third and fourth, we're looking at reducing the collection and recycling of the products. Now, if you're looking at your capability of increasing the recycling, then you'll also realize that the plastic packaging, for example, if you use PET, they'll have to be sorted by color, right? Okay. So when you have the clear, it's easy for you to just bring them into ones instead of having blue, clear, green, yellow, and then try to recycle them separately. Okay. So if you have a clear bottle, then and the market adopts that, that's one of the best factors that will help us also increase in our ability to recycle the different packaging products. So it's a good thing that Cocoa is doing. The other bit is also looking at the sleeves, right? Okay. Because some of them then the design is that it has the adhesive
paper sort of, yeah, the sleeve around it.
No, the glue, right? So it sticks on the bottle, and you have to wash the bottle when you want to recycle it. So it actually makes you spend more money trying to wash those bottles and remove the sleeves. So if you have it in a way where it's easy to be removed, then you actually recycle the sleeves separately. That's also
maybe the glue just needs to be on the paper or whatever.
So different. But anyway, trying to look at different designs. We actually people should visit the KPP .org
KPP.
Kenya Plastics Pact. So in short, it's KPP.
Okay. Okay.
To look at recycling guidance, that basically just talks about the good best practices that could be adopted. Okay. Yeah. So starts as simple as that, as you just mentioned. And you could go into the design of a packaging where you're trying to use less polymers. You know, plastic, when you talk about plastic, the different polymers, like some point you talk about PET, polyethylene, the left, the right. We also have HDPE, high density polyethylene. We have PE, we have PP. So we also need to understand what kind of plastics are you dealing with and which one is easier to recycle. So when you talk to the recyclers, we also realize that other people are adding some additives to, let's say, HDPE to make it a little bit firm and rigid, and it makes it difficult for them to recycle the product. So these are some of the things we're talking to the manufacturers to try and look into, so that we have a good system that has a link between the manufacturer and the recycler, so that we're able to increase the level of recycling.
Okay.
So these are elements we're all looking at.
I know we could go on and on and on, but I'm sure the guys, you guys have picked up a few more things. I think someone is asking this. What more can consumers do to preserve the environment?
Awesome.
Yes.
Starting by separating waste at source.
So start by doing that.
Start by doing that, and also don't just throw out garbage everywhere. So yeah, it was quite interesting. I was talking to some students in BD Primary, Moja, and we were just also trying to change behavior from the schools, so that they understand the importance of separating waste at source and also putting the right trash in the right place. For example, if you have the marked bins, sometimes we start by 2, so we say dry and wet. So wet means anything that's organic, the banana peels, the ugali that you left over, the pizza that you left, so put it in a separate bin. And all the dry things, paper, plastic, metal, glass, put it in one. So it will be easy to separate the dry from the wet. But if you put paper with organic, then it's difficult to recover the paper.
You're right.
And then now you can go into the levels of now looking at plastics, glass, organic.
Okay.
So slowly then consumers will begin to contribute greatly.
Okay.
But the other thing that I also need to comment about that is that the collection of waste needs to match with the effort from the consumers. Because now you don't want to see the guy who's coming to collect your waste, you spend your time to separate the waste and then they come put it all back together when they're collecting it. So we need to match the two.
Okay.
So that we have effort from the consumers separating the waste, and then the waste service providers also separating it while they're collecting.
Okay.
And then the recyclers will have an easier job to recover.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Ebenezer, man, it's been an honor having you. Goodness, time has flown.
And then the other part is also in the planting of trees.
Oh, yes.
We need to move from planting trees to growing trees. You know, I learned that when I have a piece of land. So I was very enthusiastic. I said, I'm going to plant 300 trees. You know, we planted along the fence. I realized it's only half that survived, so 150. So I had to replant the other. I went back. I also realized that I need to do another 50. So growing of trees is actually a journey, because you have to ensure that you do water the trees and nurture the trees and ensure they get to a point where they now grow. Because sometimes we talk about just planting of trees, so we go celebrate one day, like I did my 10, I'm good, but how many survived?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because it's one thing to just say you're planting and one thing to do the growing.
So if you focus on that, then the tree cover will begin to grow. Yeah. Because the question you'll be asking yourself, everyone is saying we planted 10,000 trees, blah, blah, blah. So where's the tree cover? Why is it still standing at 12%? So
because we see delegations, people have said we have done this or that. Yeah, like I was doing a hike at Gong Hills, and it was sort of like 2 months after there was a huge, high level tree planting. And just going around and looking at them, they're dead. And I thought, was there anybody who was checking that these things survived? It's quite sad. The resources used, but the follow-up is not there. If
you look at the figures, if I give it to you, is that planting a tree could be about 300 shillings, Kenya shillings. Growing a tree could be between $100 to $150. Because planting a tree, you're looking at the seedling, you're looking at your transportation, digging the hole, plant it, water it for that day. You're done.
Yeah, that's easy.
That's easy.
Yeah.
So I will also encourage companies to have that shift. So you don't just say you're planting 10,000 seedlings. You better reduce the figure from 10,000 to 5,000 and say we're going to grow 5,000 trees.
Yeah. Somebody came up with a formula. When is your birthday?
My birthday is 18th.
18th of?
December.
December.
Yes.
So let's assume you'll be.
I thought you were going to ask the year.
No, the
to do your calculations.
I'm trying to help you out.
I was about to give it to you.
I'm going to make an assumption. Let's say you're turning 30. Okay? That's a good assumption, right? You're turning 30.
Assumptions, yeah, okay.
Yes. You're turning 30 on your birthday. Make sure you grow 30 trees within that year.
Within that year.
The next year, grow your 31.
30 plus 1.
That kind of way. But you ensure that they grow that by the time you're turning the next year, you're like, this is my first 30 that I did. Awesome. Then you keep adding on the go.
Okay.
That probably will be better, and it's lesser than the cost of cake. The kind of cake you like taking.
Really?
Yeah.
If you do the math,
yes,
with your assumption of 30, times $100, that's $3,000.
Yeah.
Is that
taking care of it, don't worry about it, because it's a place that has been put aside.
No, I was comparing it to the cake.
No,
it's comparing it to the
cake.
cake.
Cake is the other one. The one that you take from. Let me not mention. But anyway, Venez, it's been good having you, man.
It's nice
nice
being here.
Thanks for the enlightenment. I mean, it's quite complex. Even when you speak, it's a very complex thing. But thanks for trying to simplify it for us.
Very simple.
The producer responsibilities, all those things, and I hope, guys, you do not a bit float. I can see like about 100 of you here on Twitter. Good stuff. I'm sure you will digest all this. And Ebenezer, you can reach him. How can guys reach you, by the way?
You can reach.
Email or something?
Yeah, I have an email.
It's what?
It's E-Amadi.
E-Amadi.
Yeah.
Yes.
At kepsa.or.ke.
There you go.
Yeah,
E-Amadi at
very easy.
kepsa.or.ke.
Yeah.
There you have it, guys. And thank you once again, man.
Or they can go to my, I don't know.
Your account?
LinkedIn. Yeah,
LinkedIn?
Yeah.
Is just
Ebenezer Amadi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it Ebenezer or is it Ebenezer?
It's Ebenezer.
Ebenezer.
Yeah.
So it's okay.
That's the correct pronunciation.
For my church, we call it Ebenezer.
That song killed it. You need to reproduce that song. Apart from being a DJ school dropout and a dancer, I was also a music, an artist. With my bro, yeah.
Singing?
Yeah.
Do you have the guitar? Just checking, but anyway, no worries.
Vocals, not the guitar.
Okay, just checking. I wanted to play for you. So
okay, you can.
Yeah. Guys, we're going to have Ebenezer one more time. This time round, he will sing a song for us.
Very well.
Thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
Guys, that's it here on BizTalks. Thank you so much for your time. It's been one of a learning time as well. I took a lot of notes as well. And thank you so much for your time. That's BizTalks. Bye-bye.